Hey guys, in our last video we created this robot character which is a game character. So in this video I just want to take a few minutes and let's create UVs for this guy so we can bring him into Substance Painter and maybe add some cool texture. So how do you do UVs here in Maya? So the important thing to understand is if this is a game character, one of the first things you want to do is definitely select all the pieces if you have many different elements that are separate, right, that were created during modeling, and just simply combine the character into one and then clear your history. So this is going to allow you to create one mesh. We're going to have one mesh, which is going to be great for game engines because that's going to reduce the draw calls tremendously when the character is animated in the game, right? So the one thing to keep in mind for anyone who is new to creating UVs or game characters, even though you combine the mesh into one, you can still select each piece individually and apply different materials to it. So for example, if in Unity or Unreal these pieces had different roughness or different material attributes, you can still assign different materials even though it's one mesh, right? So keep that in mind. And of course, if you set up joints, which we might do as well, one mesh or multiple meshes doesn't really matter because each piece is going to be driven by joints, right? So, all right, so keep that in mind. All right, so to move forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this character and I'm going to jump into my UV editor and let's take a look and see what do we have. So currently there's no UVs for this, right? So what I like to do is I'm going to open up my projection here and I'm going to project it from Z, and I can see that Z is the front, right? So I'm just going to say apply, and here we go. So these are my current UVs. I'm going to press W and move him aside. One thing I want to point out is in my UV editor I do have something called UV toolkit. If you don't see that here, you can just go to tools and you can activate it right here. This is your UV toolkit. And the one thing that I like to do is I like to drag my tab right into the UV editor so they're kind of parked together. So do that, and that way next time you open your UV editor, the toolkit will just be parked here. And if you like this workflow, then you can also save your workspace and always have that kind of working for you. All right, so let's get started. Let's just jump right in and quickly see if we can just unfold this guy. All right, so what would be a good place to start? I'm just going to start with something really simple. Let's just select, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click on all the ribs for this guy, right? If I press W, I can move him into position, and this is my 0 to 1 UV space, right? So let's start unfolding it piece by piece and do it that way, right? So there's a couple different ways we can do this, right? An automated way of doing that is clicking auto seams. So I can click on auto seams. That's an option. Then I can select these and just do an unfold. And you can see what that looks like, right? If you are not happy with the auto seams, most of the time you won't be, right? Let's do it manually and see if we can do a better job. Now, I do want to mention one thing for anyone who is new to creating UVs in Maya. You could select the entire thing and just go to UV and do automatic, and then this is what you will get. Now this could technically work if you bring it to Substance Painter. I believe this will work just fine, but the downside of this is anyone who will see your work, if you ever want to sell this model or give it to somebody who is going to work further on it or maybe do some painting on it, this is really not acceptable. And as far as the industry standard goes, this is definitely not going to work for you. And for that reason, let's do it let's do it manually and do a much better job, right? So I'm going to do apply from the front again, press W, move this aside, and again, let's just do it the proper way, right? So the proper way would be let's select all of these pieces here, and I'm going to press again W. I'm going to move them into this position, and let's see if we can quickly unwrap them. So I'm going to isolate them, and let's decide where we want our seams to be. So the seams should probably be on the bottom of this piece. So I'm going to select each one, holding down the Shift key, double click. I can just select all the bottoms for these pieces. Very nice. I'm going to project it from the top. So now they're just kind of stacked together. And what I could do next is I can open up, let's open these guys up, and let's do unstack. And you can see that that's going to automatically organize them for us. So I'm going to move them out of the way. I just want to keep this area clean. Think of this 0 to 1 space as kind of like our working table, and everything else is just the floor. I'm just throwing stuff on the floor as we're unwrapping it. All right, so next let's select these guys. We can also project them from the top, and let's go ahead and unfold them as well. So this is the unfold we get. If we unstack, we can see what they look like, and I think it's totally fine. Now if you want to do a nicer job with this, and one thing you could do is cut the corners of each one and then unfold them that way. But I think for this, this will work just fine. So I'm going to press W, move them aside, or again throw them on the floor somewhere. That's fine. Let's keep going. So I'm going to jump out of isolate. Let's grab this guy here and let's look at him, see what's going on here. All right. I can just simply choose a seam that makes sense. So maybe something like that will work. And let's go ahead and do a cut. If I double click on it, I can move it into position as well, into this space, and let's do an unfold. All right, and that's going to be on unfold. That's fine. So I'm going to press W, move it aside. Now you're gonna quickly realize as you're doing this that each piece is going to have different density, right? It's kind of unwrapping it at different scale, and later we're going to deal with this and make sure that all the UVs have the same scale. And the reason you want to make sure it's the same scale is because when you're applying textures in Substance Painter, you don't want your noise texture or any kind of a pattern texture to be different, density, right? You want to make sure that everything seamlessly carries over from element to element. So for that reason, you want to make sure that all of these have the same density. And the way you do that is you just go to transform, and for example, if I double click on this, I can say Texel density. If I say get, I can see that this piece right here is 4.24, which means if I select all of them and say set, now I know that all of these pieces are set to this same Texel density, right? So that's going to be very important moving forward as we keep unwrapping it. But for now, to keep this organized, I can do unstack and kind of bunch them all together for now, right? Just for later use. Now, if you wanted to preview any one of the pieces that you already did, you can just simply turn this button on, and that's going to give you a really nice preview. So if I select all of these and isolate them, I can take a look and see if I'm happy with the unwrapping, right? And usually one thing that you want to keep in mind is that all of the grid boxes need to be about the same scale or size. And for example, if I grow this up, you can see what I'm talking about, right? So most of the boxes need to be the same size. So like this right here is being stretched, and technically, that's not very good. If you look down here, all of the textures have perfect grid pattern. So that's how you can quickly check and see if you are doing a nice job unwrapping it. Now, if something doesn't look right, so for example, you can see that this is being stretched and distorted, right? How would you fix that? How would you adjust that? Well, what I was telling you earlier is if you go through and, for example, make a cut on each corner of these. Let me show you the difference between the one that has something like this, which is going to be this one, and the one that doesn't, right? So if I select all of these corners and do a cut, and then let me double click on this and do an unfold, right? You can see that it's now unfolded a little bit different from these, right? Which means if you take a closer look at it, you can see that a lot of the elements on the side are no longer distorted like it is here. So there's a clearly huge difference, right? So that's kind of a UV 101 that you need to understand when you're previewing it by clicking this button, is how is the texture you're going to be painting, and Substance Painter, how is that going to work on your mesh, right? So for example, if this had a pattern like a stripe pattern or something of that nature, it's going to get completely distorted in Substance Painter, which is terrible, right? But if this is, you know, a simple solid, you know, rubber or plastic, then this will work just fine. So you really need to understand probably ahead of time, like what kind of textures are you and materials are you going to be applying to your mesh to figure out what is the best way to unfold them and how much time you want to spend doing, right? So keep all of that in mind. I think to stay consistent and just do a nice job, let me just go ahead and do the same thing with all of these all at once, right? So I'm gonna do them kind of in the similar way. All right, very nice. So I just simply literally just took the inner edges and selected them by holding the Shift key and clicking. So now if I make a cut, I can select all the pieces that I want to refold and just unfold them, right? And now you can see what that looks like. If I select them all and do unstack, it's going to organize them a little bit better for me. And now if I revisit our texture, you can see that they look much nicer, and this is actually, you know, what you would want, right? So that would be pretty much the basics of doing UVs, and now there's really no magic. The rest you just have to do it piece by piece to each one, right? So let's just continue. So I'm going to jump out of the isolate, and one thing I do like to do as well, a lot of times I'll select the pieces that I already finished and I'll just simply hide them. If I hide them, they disappear from my viewport, and then I know that that I already finished these. Now, if you wanted to do that as well, you just go to Display, Hide, and do Hide Selection. And I just have that dragged on my, added to my shelf here. And then if you ever want to bring everything back, you just do Show All, which will bring everything back, or you just go to Display, Show, and then do All. All right, so that would be the way you do the rest of these pieces, right? So in our case, I don't want to take the time and spend another hour doing that. So instead, I'm gonna do, just for the sake of speed, let me just simply click on automatic, right? So that's fine, just for the sake of demonstration. Let's say this is not what it looks like. Let's say I spent the time and organized all the pieces together, right? So if that was the case, the next step would be to take all the elements that are floating around and putting them into 0 to 1 space, right? So to do that, all you would have to do is, first you definitely want to match the density, right? Just like I showed you before. So for the example, I'm going to click on one of these. I'm going to get the density, it's 2.6. So let's select all of these and match the density. Now I'm going to select everything, and what I can do is I can go to modify, I can go to layout, and I can click on options, and in here let me reset this. But all right, and then to pack them all into the 0 to 1 space, you just simply say apply, and you also have a couple different options, right? So you can do unfold 3D, and there's a few different options here. You can stack similar or not. You can translate and rotate the shells. You can also do legacy. If you do legacy and select all the shells and apply, you can see what it's doing. It's using yet a different layout algorithm to kind of lay them out. So a few different options, right? But then what you have is a 0 to 1 sheet that is ready to be brought into Substance Painter and be used for textures, right? If you ever wanted to review some of the distortions, press R and just scale this up. And when you scale that up a lot, you can really see the distortion, and you can check your UVs really well, right? You can see if anything has anything, super distorted, or anything that requires your attention. If everything looks good and you're happy with it, you can just undo it and then put it back into 0 to 1 space. And now if I export this out to Substance Painter, I'll be able to start doing textures. All right, so I hope this was useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.